You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hi, everybody. We have very exciting Talkin Shop today. As always, we're all about making sure you know exactly what's coming out to your local comic shops this week or very soon. And so you can make sure to talk to them about what you want to put in your boxes. We have a lot to talk about today, so I'm not going to do much introduction because everyone wants to talk to who I'm talking to today, not me. All right, I'll see you in a second. Everybody, welcome to The Experience. I am Miss Jen, owner of Space Cadets Collection, and lover of really great comic books, and LCS owner. So it's also a little bit why I talk about support your LCSs, because there's a bunch of us out here, and we love knowing what you want to have to read. So you gotta let us know. We have some amazing guests in. We're going to talk to a newly formed company, Frank Miller Presents, very important guest, book that's releasing this week to places near you, Pandora. This is Frank Miller and Emma Cooper.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is having a great day and weather is great wherever you are. Although you guys don't ever leave the house, do you?
Not really.
Is there anything out there? Is there anything still out there?
I don't know. I feel like we could write like some kind of story in which only things that exist are what happens in comic books, because that's what we know.
I mean,
well, I've got one window I can see out, and it's always dark.
Oh goodness, that would be hard. This time of year is hard on a lot of people because it gets dark really early, and you get up and it's totally dark when you get up. That's yucky. I'm still in Texas, so Texas is okay. We still have some light when we get up in the morning, so it's amazing. All right, let's talk about this really awesome book that's coming out this week, Pandora. So, Emma, people probably know your work most recently from Inkblot out of Image. Really cute art style, very awesome story. The thing that I don't know is there more Inkblot to come?
Eventually, but I have a lot of projects in the meantime going on. So
feels like it.
I definitely would want to finish Inkblot down the line, but we have Pandora here, which is exciting.
Absolutely. Okay, so for everybody most everybody here knows this, but the line launched really strongly with Ronin 2, and oh my gosh, my brain just stopped. Ancient Enemies. Mm-hmm. I read it twice. Like, why can't I remember Ancient Enemies? Ancient Grudge Match happening. So those two titles were very strong. We love them. And it looks like the release schedule is going to be really nice. So it's not going to be just too much for people's pocketbooks. It's coming out like, 1 million books a week. I really like how Frank Miller Presents as a company is thinking about their line very, very carefully about what's coming out when. Frank, did you thought through all of those things? Like, what book is the right one to come out first? Can you speak to why this one is coming out on the week that it is?
Well, I can't really talk about the particular week, but we did. But Dan DiDio and I worked closely in scheduling exactly when things would come out. Partly because it's a simple reason of when will they get done, and another that there is an overall plan for releasing them so that they kind of work together. I'm not talking about any crossovers or anything. I'm just saying that there's a nice balance showing that the range of material is pretty wide.
So Pandora is an interesting comic book. I very much like books that aren't just like one linear story. I like ones that are like this one, where it is, sure, it's one story, but you're seeing it from completely different points of view.
Yeah.
One are, I don't know, I'm going to call them goblins for lack of calling them anything else. They're really cute, whatever they are. If they're supposed to be goblins, they're the cutest goblins I've ever seen. And this really super cute girl named Annabeth, who looks exactly like me. And I think it's me at 15. Thanks for putting me in a book. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Brown eyes and all.
Well, with Pandora is you got to understand part of my personal history of this is that my parents, particularly my mother, collected old. They didn't collect them, but they kept old children's books from their childhood, so I was exposed at an early age to like Arthur Rackham and Wyeth Brothers and many other classic children's book cartoonists. It's one of the several things that got me drawing like crazy when I was a kid. And then as I grew up, I like any other breathing human, I was exposed to the Disney movies as they came out. Then the Fleischer cartoons of particularly Superman. But all of that just has left me with a deep and abiding love of children's literature illustrated, but illustrated really, really well. Not in a way that insults or talks down to the readership, but one that inspires the readership to want to go out and draw.
Do you remember having a favorite from the books that are at your house?
Oh, geez, so many. It's like actually I settled on Dr. Seuss for a long time. Before that, it was the King Arthur. The real old, kind of, it would look stodgy now. That was where I was exposed to Arthur Rackham. But I'll tell you, the one that swept me off my feet in terms of a cartoon movie, but also as a book, was Talkin. Everything about that story, including a lead character that looked just like I did when I was that age, was just a thrill and a half.
I think the one that affected me the most as a kid, and the one that I still read over and over again, is Watership Down.
Oh yeah, well that's a bit advanced for
Yeah.
But that is a pretty amazing book. There's no question about it. Anyway, as this whole idea started growing of actually getting to do something that's aimed for children, there was no question about who we wanted to have illustrate. I mean, Emma was absolutely perfect, and the very first stuff that I saw by her showed definitely a Kubrick's work because they got a traditional quality that you're not going to match, but it also showed a humor and it's a sense of abundant joy that the comics have kind of let slide by the wayside. So this is a project to do what you all do with an artist, to exploit.
The line work for Emma is so amazing, but for me, just like some things stand out in art more than others.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's just like an ink blot. It's for me the colors, like the colors chosen are just stunning.
Also, the character, of Pandora herself is so completely endearing and intelligent, inquisitive, and daring all at once. That she's a joy.
Yeah. You've written a character that is just like all characters that I fall in love with, that they are in kind of either broken situations or they themselves broken. Will we learn more about why her family's in the situation that it's in?
We surely will.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm telling you anything now.
I mean, because it's rough. Without spoiling anything, like her family has had to take in like boarders, like most everybody right now that's trying to make an extra buck to try to make do. But
Well,
it seems like there's something else underlying that.
well, I think you might remember that with the Wizard of Oz, when you first saw where Dorothy lived, it was not the most pleasant circumstances in the world.
This
She
is
was
very true.
she was in the Dust Bowl during the Depression. So there's got to be a grounded reality for the fantasies to really work.
Yeah, I think like with Pandora itself, it's really about the power of escapism, you know, that we're that yeah, whatever really reality we're in, we can always escape from that and look beyond our unfulfillments. And with our main character, Annabeth, she's not in the best scenarios, but again, she is a smart, independent, daring young woman who is looking for more. And that was one of the things that really drew me to this story in the first place. I mean, for me, story is above all else. I absolutely love drawing stories, not just drawing in general. And when I draw Annabeth, like I literally just finished, just a sneak thing, I just finished the inks for issue 2 today.
Hey,
I did. But that's like one of my favorite parts is that like I'm just constantly following Annabeth through her story. And that's what's most exciting to me is seeing what will come next as I draw it. And I think that's like one of the coolest things about this story is that I'm kind of reading it along of while drawing it and creating it. And it's super exciting.
Now remind me, I remember reading one of the other characters mentioning artwork that she has done, but I don't think that we get to see any of it. Is that part important?
Yes. And you do see a little bit of it. You see like a little bit of her sketches and everything in the story. So seeing that kind of exploration is very important, and it's an important theme throughout the story. Because that is like her whole purpose is that again she's looking beyond her situations that she's in, and aren't we all, as you know, everyone's a creative person in general, so we're always looking beyond what our reality is. And I mean with her, you know, she can draw it and write it, and same here.
Mr. Miller, when you're doing the creative process for writing for this book, do you tend to do like little sketch design for what you have in mind for layout, or you just let that be the complete control of Emma and her creativity?
I'm real glad you asked me that because often on other projects I have done exactly that to help my thinking along and so on. On this one, I don't because I'm way too busy learning from it. I tend to throw things in her direction and then see what will come back, and that just gives me all the more to work with.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that a lot. That creators often, like when they find a good match for their you know, when they're working on a project together, that process is real natural.
Well, I mean, like from my perspective, I'm just thanking my lucky stars that these comic book legends trust me with their story. I'm just like drawing this, and I'm like, what? Sometimes I just think, wow, like this is insane. But it's also insane that whenever we talk about it, all I want to do is keep on working on it or keep on talking about it, because that's what I love, and that's what I love about just not only Pandora but Frank Miller Presents in general. It's all story forward and it's all creator forward. And even like when I was at New York Comic Con and I was able to talk to the other creators of Ancient Enemies and Ronin 2, it was just astounding to see all of that kind of energy throughout all of us. And we're just absolutely excited to work on all of these titles. So how can you just not put your best foot forward with it? You know?
And what Emma just described is exactly the way it should always feel making comic books.
I agree.
And there's just no reason for a job that we trained this hard to learn how to do to be anything but a joy to do, and it is.
Yeah.
And I'll have to say, just from like an outside, perspective of just having, to read the material, to enjoy the art and all that for all of Frank Miller Presents, is that even though Ronin too is coming out of something that exists, it really doesn't feel like retread territory at all. It all feels like new, exciting storytelling.
Yeah, it is a sequel. It does follow the storyline, but it's definitely leaping territory. But it's interesting, sort of jumping back to Pandora, to say that I knew Emma's grandfather a bit here and there, and he and I would talk about the aspirations of comics and everything, and he lived to fulfill so many of them. But the things that he and I would talk at the greatest length about were exactly what embodied the spirit of this overall project. To be working with a Kubert is a dream come true.
That's wonderful. So, when we're talking about Pandora and your creative process for writing, Frank, or creating the series, are you the kind of writer that does it like a complete outline and knows where the end line is, or do you start writing and let the book take you where it's going to go?
A bit of both. What I do is I put what I call road signs down, knowing that certain parts of the story, this is going to happen, and certain other parts, that's going to happen, and I got a pretty good idea of how it's going to end. But I leave a gigantic amount of details open, depending on where the story's taking me, depending on the artwork as it comes in, and what things I say, well, we got to make more use of this. It's like, because I didn't know Emma did such great goblins, there's got to be more of them. That sort of thing.
I like drawing the goblins. They're fun.
So has anything changed just during the creative process? Like something was on the page, and then that you guys were just inspired to
more than anything. Don't mind me jumping in first, Emma, but more than anything, I've got to say is the voices of the characters. They leap off the page sometimes because of the drawings. Annabeth, I got to admit, there's some things that I put in Annabeth's mouth that come from expressions I've seen on Emma's face. And well, she puts so much of herself in the character.
I do. Sometimes when I'm at the drawing board, I'll be drawing and I'll make the same kind of face.
We all do that. You just got more pleasant stuff to share than most of us do.
What other things, Emma? What else have you put on the page that is distinctly something that's like, I can put this in here, and it totally means something to me?
Well, in all honesty, it really is everything. And it's just because Annabeth is a young, creative girl, and that was me too. I was a young girl who was very much into art and fantasy, and I loved animation when I was younger. I loved all kinds of different types of art and theater and music and just literally everything that had to do with creativity. So with Annabeth, she's obsessed with just other worlds, and that's exactly how I was when I was younger too. But there's also some sort of like guard to her because of the kind of reality she lives in. So there is that kind of friction that butts up against that, and I really wanted to portray that in that kind of character because you do have to deal with reality, but all you want to do is escape. All you want to do is be in a fantasy world. And that's where I wanted to show that she is her truest self, is in that fantasy world.
Oh yeah. And you
And
see in
Emma,
her a lot of like not only like kind of like that free spirit of like I'm gonna take a risk and but you get to see the softness of her as she her interactions with her grandfather.
Yep.
So nice.
it's exactly what I was going to bring up, is that her grandfather has has left quite an impression on her, hasn't he?
Yes, indeed. My grandfather is very, very important to me. I actually teach at the Kubert School, the school that he established in the 70s. And my family in all is really important to me. And it's not just because they're, comic book family. But it's just because of the kind of people that they are. They're very, if I use the word humble, Frank will yell at me, but I won't say that because he did last time. But they work really hard and they put everything they have into what they love. And that's something that I absolutely admire about my family. So if I was going into the family business surrounding something that they absolutely love and I absolutely love, I have to put my best foot forward, and I have to do the best that I can possibly do, not just to, honor the family, but also myself and my love for the craft in general.
You can definitely see it on the page. I can't wait for people to actually see it. All right. I see everyone asking questions. I can't take all of them, but I see a really good one here. This one says, Mr. Miller, when creating a character and story, what do you think are some of the most important things you need to make the story or character great? Take it to school.
Okay. Characters are always defined by a problem they need to solve. I'll leave it at that. That it's how we get by that explains who we are. And so if you're doing a detective story, really seeing the guy work is going to tell you more about him than hearing the history of his childhood. And so the way I tend to start is by getting somebody in trouble.
Great way to start.
If you look at my stories, most of them start with somebody getting in trouble. In the case of Pandora, the true, at least particularly the name of it, it had to be somebody whose curiosity got her in trouble.
Yeah.
And the rest just spun like topsy. This is not a strictly plotted, calculated project. This is much more of an exploration.
Perfect. Here's just a question from me. Which of your characters, if any, do you feel like you put the most of like your own characteristics? Either things that you want to be or things that you feel like you are.
It really depends on which job I'm working on, but I would say that of all the characters where I felt that kind of gut level thing, it would be from Sin City, the character Dwight.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Dwight's awesome.
He was always intending to do the right things, but he was pretty messed up about getting there. That's a pretty good summation to me.
Yeah, well, that's what makes all of Sin City so awesome, right? All of those characters are flawed.
Yes.
Perfect. Oh, perfect. All right, so we're down to our last couple of minutes. So Pandora, number 1 comes out this Wednesday. Do you know kind of like how long there might be between issues, the current plans for it?
Saying it's gonna be monthly, isn't it?
Yeah, so this issue is a double issue, so 48 pages. And then after that, it's going to be coming out monthly. So it'll be a monthly 24 page issue, and you can pick it up at your local comic book shop. Yay.
She's a tuber, so she'll be on time.
Oh, always. Honestly, I hate being late for things. It's my least favorite thing to do.
So what is the key? So this is something from the art perspective you can tell people that are aspiring artists. What's the key to staying on time?
I guess staying organized is one. Working hard. I guess working hard every day and staying consistent is the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, honestly, just having the love and the passion drive you to want to do it. Because that's really what drives me to do all of my different projects, is that like I do an immense amount of work, and it's simply just because I love it. I absolutely love drawing and creating stories. So that's really the main thing.
You can totally see it. Like it exudes out of you, the excitement for what you do.
I love it.
Mr. Miller, do you want to leave everybody with some like parting advice, inspiration for people that are thoughtful about maybe wanting to create something of their own?
Yeah. Know your ending. No, but beyond that, I'd say that it really is the most important thing that anybody who wants to do the kind of work that Emma and I do. The most important thing to keep in mind is that you are going to be spending the vast majority of your waking hours doing this. So you have to love it, or you will hate it.
Yeah, just a reference. I probably draw about 9 to 12 hours a day ish, and that hasn't stopped since I was in college. So about I don't know 8-ish years, and I'm still going strong.
Well, then that's the trick to going strong. Like again, getting back to him, kind of work for your granddad.
Yeah.
and I would say that the most important thing that's worked for me is to make it, to pick work that I want to have done. That is not that necessarily that would be fun to do, because it all ends up being fun to do. But something that I know I'd want to have on the shelf.
Yeah.
And even if it sounds impossible, I mean, when I started 300, it sounded impossible. I'll never get all the research material I need, et cetera, et cetera. And it ended up being one of the most rewarding things I ever did. And it ended up being really fun to do.
That's amazing. All right. So for everybody that would like to follow the progress for Frank Miller Presents, is the right place for everyone to follow on the Twitter and Facebook pages? Anywhere else you guys like them to follow you?
Instagram too.
I'm old. Well, Berg, thank you guys so much. I know that every moment is precious for you guys as you're working so hard to give us the very best comic books out there to read. We appreciate you and your time. Thank you. Hearts and thumbs up, everybody.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Make sure to pick up copies this week. This is how they know that they're doing a great job, as you go and you support it with some dollars. Yes. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back with another guest. See you in a second.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit ComicShopLocator.com to find a store near you.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
And welcome back. We've got like the giant slate of amazing creators today with the very best books coming out into the market. So I'm super excited for you guys. We get to now talk to somebody from the other side of the earth, Alex Pactadil.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing good. It's really like early in the morning for you, is that right?
It's like 10:30 at night, so I've got a 6-year-old sleeping right above me who could come down at any moment. So like there's like a palpable air of suspense, you know.
Oh, yeah.
If he's gonna come in and like kick me in the head.
Okay, so I just have to say to you, like, did you, as a young person, think to yourself that you would ever have things out from Marvel, DC, Image, Vault? It goes on.
Do you know, like, I kind of did, but I don't want to sound. I don't want to sound arrogant. Purely because I was so sort of single-mindedly obsessed with it, right? I mean, you're in a comics family, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a comics family. So like my dad, my dad used to visit a comic store called Dark They Were and Golden Eyed that was like the first specialty US comic store in the UK in like the early 70s. He used to pick them up. And like he got one of like 70 copies of Giant Size X-Men 1 that like made it to England. And so it was always there, like from birth. Like my dad taught me to read with Marvel Treasury editions, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember like he had to stop collecting when I was really young because he couldn't afford to kind of collect comics and have a kid. So like I kind of killed his collecting. But then when I kind of came of age and like X-Men 1 came out, X-Force 1, that was kind of, I was there for that. Like I was super young, but that was like my thing. And I just thought, okay, this is what I want to do. And I remember kind of asking my dad, I was like, who's the youngest person who's ever done that? Oh, who's ever done this? And my dad was kind of going like, I think it's Jim Shooter. Like, I think Jim Shooter was writing like Legion of Superheroes at like 13. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it at 12. I think I managed it at 32. So like I overshot. But I got there in the end.
Well, I mean, I guess the point I'm making about it really is that you couldn't say as a kid, I'm going to write for Marvel and DC, but then not do any work to get there. Like you did the work.
This is it. Like, but you underestimate the amount of work, right? It's like, oh, like I have to learn loads of stuff, like how stories work. And yeah, it's a whole thing.
So what was your earliest
Oh, I mean, I was really lucky. Like, I got quite a big thing straight out of the gate. 2015, a book of mine came out called Arcadia through Boom Studios. And it was kind of insane, really. Like they're really kind of cool people, and they just kind of gave me like an 8-issue mini, like straight out the gate, and just went, go on, do that. So I did.
You're gonna have to explain this. Did you just like show up and say, "Hey, I'd like to write something"? Like, here, try this, or did you have to like submit something?
Oh yeah, like 100%. I mean, the way, yeah. I mean, it was a tangled web, and like I would be lying if there wasn't like an element of kind of who you know, because like where I live in the north of England, like Andy Diggle is like 3 streets over, right? We've known each other for nearly 20 years, and I talked about writing for ages, right? But I used to just do this thing where we used to like go into bars, and I would like tell him my dumb ideas for stories, and I did that for about 5 years, and then he just kind of got really mad at me, and just kind of went like, I don't want you to tell me any of your dumb ideas anymore. Write them down, and we'll talk about them. But if you just like get drunk and like talk about them, I'm not going to do anything. So like I wrote a couple of them down, and like there's a big comic show in the UK called Thought Bubble, right? Like it's a big show. And Will Dennis, who was then group editor at Vertigo, came over, who obviously Andy was kind of super tight with, and he just like sat me down in front of him and just went. I mean, I was blindsided, and he was like, he's got some really good ideas. Like, listen to him. So I was like, I got kind of cold sweats and everything, sweaty palmed, and like obviously made an idiot of myself. But I told him a couple of ideas, and Will went, all right, work them up, and like I'll run them past DC. So he did. They didn't get anywhere. I was super depressed for about 6 hours because Will is like the best guy ever, right? Instead of like letting it, instead of just kind of coming back and just going, all right, like I couldn't get it over the line, sorry. He'd called up Matt Gagnon at Boom Studios and just went, look, I can't get this over the line at Vertigo. Like, do you want it? And they were on the phone to me from LA like within a day, and it was all set up, and like that was that. I'm very lucky.
I think that's wonderful. Does that happen a lot in comic books? Do you see that like, okay, this may not be a match right now for us at this company, but it would be like there's perfect space for it over here?
I think that there's an element of that, but I think it's I don't think it's like an orthodoxy. I think it depends like who you're working with. Like someone like Will Dennis, who's like an exceptional human being and an exceptional editor. I think because they have a passion for the medium itself, right? Because Will set that up at Boom knowing that he wasn't going to edit it. Like he just wanted it to exist. And when you get people like that who have like a love of the medium that kind of transcends to an extent their own ambitions, then I think really good things happen. And yeah, you do end up with, okay, well, if that can't be placed here, then it'll end up kind of being placed there. But in terms of like one of the first kind of things I was told this is the thing, like, when I broke in, you never really stop breaking in. Like that's the first thing people tell you. But I remember, I think it was Simon Spurrier said to me, he said, breaking into comics is like breaking out of prison. I said, breaking into comics is like breaking out of prison. What do you mean? He goes, every time someone breaks out of prison, right, that route gets bricked up. So like nobody breaks in the same way that nobody breaks out of prison the same way. Because that route is like closed forever. Like once it's been used, it's done. It's burned.
That's hilarious. So Sean's got a post down here that said, really enjoyed Giga. And what's so funny is I went to go and pull a bunch of stuff of yours to put kind of like behind me as part of the display. And like, it's like a true testament to how much we hand sell your awesome stories. We don't have any. They're all gone.
Thank you very much. I got some. There's good news on that front, by the way. Like I know everyone's been extremely patient. Things have been in train, but it is done. And thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your patience. It is accomplished. You will be issue 5 will be with you presently. Thank you, and thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone.
I think everyone's learned in the last, especially 6 months, to be patient as people try to work out their schedules just for like how it's going to fit into the release schedule past, finding actual paper that's the right quality and everything.
It's been a wild old time, right? I mean, the last time we saw each other face to face was like, I think, we had a nice conversation at the bar about whether we thought that virus we'd heard about was going to do anything.
That's true.
We're like, yeah, that's the last time I saw you face to face. Like, is it? Do you think anything's going to happen? Nah, well, I guess we'll wait and see. And then, because I met up with you in Portland, I remember, and then like I went down to Los Angeles for a thing, and I was thinking, oh man, like I'm getting like a lot of air miles. Like maybe this is my life now. And then like literally within 3 weeks of that, like I remember like being at home, and I was just saying to my wife, like, I've gone from taking a romantic stroll along Santa Monica Pier to feeling like Magellan every time I take out the garbage.
Bird that says that.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you're of the mind to come to Comics Pro again, but they just announced Pittsburgh in February.
Dude, I would love to. I would love to. I had such a blast with you guys last time. No, I mean we all did. Sorry for this is a bit inside baseball. Sorry, I'm in a writer's studio called White Noise with Ramvi, Dan Waters, and Ryan O'Sullivan, and we all went over to Comics Pro, which is the big kind of it's the big sort of annual kind of retailer meetup, and it was great. It's not just you're meeting the people who are kind of passionate enough about your books to kind of hand sell them to people and to just kind of get much more of a kind of ear to the ground, and also get like kind of drunk with you guys, which is great.
I've always thought that like the creators that show up to Comics Pro are the most likely to succeed in my opinion, because they understand who are the people that are going to almost like guarantee the success or doom of any title. If it doesn't get ordered, it can't get sold. If they don't understand what it's about, or they're not going to read it, they're not going to be able to successfully get it into the hands of you, our viewership. So it was great.
It's such a funny medium for that, right? Like in the sense that I was saying this to someone the other day, the way the direct market operates almost kind of forces an intimacy between kind of like fans, retailers, and creators. The way it's sold, because you don't have that kind of, there isn't that kind of impersonal aspect that you get through sort of chain bookstores, for instance, and like obviously especially kind of like online like retail giants and everything. But that intimacy is absolutely like necessary, because also like I think you guys can smell insincerity from like the next county, you know what I mean? So unless you're genuinely passionate about the book, like forget it.
Yeah, and for me, I really enjoy going into a place. It doesn't have to be a bookstore or wherever, but that they ask you, like, that you go in, you want to have something, you don't know what, you make a general description about kind of what you're after, and they use their vast knowledge and who they've met and the objects that they've used to be able to point you to something that they can actually, they can recommend an actual thing that they've used or they've read. It's different than like the algorithms say this is probably a good match.
Well, do you know what? Like, I was talking to someone about, sorry, this is wildly tangential, but, I always love talking to you, Jen, and it always goes off into a million different directions. But like, I was talking to someone about the way recommendation algorithms work the other day. And it's real interesting because I think they will literally, it's a chain of association. Right, is the way recommendation algorithms work. So it's people who like this will also like this. And in a very real sense, it's kind of, they're feeding you yourself, right? That it's like, here's something that's absolutely keyed into this personality profile. And the way that kind of works is like, this person likes burgers. So like, I've got nothing against burgers. I love a burger, but like it will only ever give you burgers, right? Whereas the number of times like I've gone into like a really good comic book store, and I mean, particularly when you know the person really well, and you can say to whoever, whoever's there, give me something that will change my life. And you don't know, man, like, you don't know whether you're going to get Pyongyang, you don't know whether you're going to get Mouse, you don't know whether you're going to get Watchmen, but it's something that you wouldn't have even considered reading. And like, that's certainly, I would say that the books that I've read that have changed my life, they haven't been key to my personality at all. They've come in from outside. And that's something that a recommendation algorithm like will never, ever be able to do.
So true. So true. All right. So let's talk about, I know I want to talk about the other thing that's coming out from Marvel, but I'm not going to talk about that today because I really want to get deep into the weeds about All Against All, because one, it's a really cool name.
Thank you.
But also it hits all the buttons for me, which include a little bit of sci-fi, maybe a little bit of time travel. What's going on in this book? What was the inspiration for this?
Like it was genuinely one of those kind of I would describe them as like staring into the distance while you're doing your laundry ideas. You know what I mean? Those ones. And it was honestly, it was just something popped into my head. I don't know where it was from, but I just had this idea of like I had a mental image of like a species flipped alien, where it was basically like, what if you had like a load of aliens who just living in a ship? They just live in a ship. And there's this thing that's kind of swooping down out of the ducts, kind of, taking them away and kind of, doing terrible things to them. And the thing that's swooping down out of the ducts, out of all the pipes and the fixtures and everything is a human being. So instead of the xenomorph scurrying around a ship, you've got a feral human being, like a Tarzan kind of guy. And it all just kind of grew out of that. And I used that kind of central image and just started loading more and more kind of world building onto that. But it was all just structured around that idea of like, what if the xenomorph from Alien was like Tarzan?
So, but I'm right about that. It's like, doesn't happen in our timeline, right? It's
absolutely not. No, it's like yeah. I mean that's where the world building comes in. Like it's set in the far, far, far future. And I have some bad news for everyone. We didn't make it. Sorry. Yeah, we didn't make it. But there's this seed, and this is a real thing, by the way. There's a seed and embryo vault in one of the islands off the coast of Norway, and this alien species finds this seed and embryo vault, and they basically they take everything back to this sort of spaceship. They take all these samples back, and they have this almost like a sort of greenhouse on their spaceship, and they just set the whole thing running. They just recreate a kind of human ecosystem or an Earth ecosystem but they don't know how anything fits together, and they don't even know like what the dominant species is. So they're just letting everything just kind of play out. So you get like gorillas fighting polar bears, you know, things that have no business being like in the same climate, and it's all just a war of all against all, hence the title. And they don't really understand how anything fits together, but they're trying to find ways to sort of weaponize these animals, right? Because they're fighting this big war, and they're kind of going, well, there's like all these really aggressive species in here, so we'll sort of take bits and sort of weaponize them. But you know, they don't realize that they've got basically the last human being in the universe in there, and like, although he's not well socialized at all, he's pretty intelligent, and he doesn't like what they're doing, and he lets them know that he doesn't like what they're doing pretty forcefully.
It's awesome because it looks like what you've done is given very us characteristics to the aliens, because that's totally something we would do, right? Like, what's our first thought? How can we use this against somebody else?
100%. I mean, that was you know, the weird thing, right? Like, I mean, the artist on the book, Casper Wingard, you know, the co-author, sorry, you know, we had these discussions earlier on about, and you know, I was basically asking for the impossible. So I said, you know, I want really kind of aliens, because it always kind of purely on a kind of nerdy level. Like, I always get kind of honked off when like an alien is just like a dude with like bits. You know what I mean? When it's a dude with just like extra bits, and it's kind of, come on, guys. Like, the Thing, to my mind, is like that's an amazing alien, because you don't even really ever see it. You only ever see what it's trying to mimic, right? That's great stuff. So I said to Casper, you know, I said, let's not do the kind of big eye thing, and like, let's make them like alien. So, we found a mechanic that works, which is that they're kind of like squid things that wear like exosuits, and like that's basically what they harvest species for, is like they will use them to build like better and bigger kind of exosuits to kind of move around in. But initially, the first designs that we had, I was like, yeah, I don't want them to have eyes, I don't want them to have mouths. They're just, let's make them look really alien and kind of otherworldly. And then like Casper kind of showed me some designs, and then we had this back and forth over a couple of weeks where we're like, you know what, like, because the aliens are the characters that we're supposed to be following, they're the ones that you're supposed to empathize with. And it's such a weird thing. Like, you know how there's that bit in Understanding Comics, in in McCloud's Understanding Comics, where he talks about, you know, human beings like will see themselves in everything. You know, like if you draw like a circle and put 2 dots on a line, they'll see a face. If you don't give them 2 dots on a line, empathy is like almost impossible. It's really interesting. We were kind of going, we can't have characters that are relatable. And so we started off with these really kind of alien designs, and then like week by week, page by page, it was like, gotta have eyes, all right, gotta have mouth, all right, gotta have lips, gotta have teeth. And then eventually, like, you know, Casper's done an incredible job. They still, I think, and you know, you've read the book, you've seen them, like that. I think they still look incredible, but it's amazing how few human features you can actually get away with. Like, you can take away a nose, yep, you can take away ears, that's cool, but people need eyes, they need a mouth, they need something they can read, you know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I just it's interesting to hear you say like how hard it is to create characters just with what we know the reader's going to need. It's a tough thing. And I think that, like, I'm always amazed when I read a comic book or watch a TV show or watch a movie that they've had to do creature design. Yeah. That they've managed to create something unique, because I just, at some point you feel like everything's been made, right? All the versions of anything that's possible can be made. But then you see like things that Casper created. There's like, clearly not everything's been made. It's impressive.
I will tell him that. I'm sure he'll be absolutely no, because you know he beasted himself to kind of to come up with something. But it's also like, I mean, not being funny, like it is almost impossible to think outside of a kind of human frame. I think that's what's really interesting, is like even something like, yeah, you know, go back to the classic, right? Go back to like the Alien. you're still basically putting like a bunch of insect parts together. Really, it's so difficult to come up with something that hasn't been kind of curated from kind of everyday experience. You know what I mean? And I mean, I mentioned it before. I think that's why the Thing is so genius, is because what Carpenter did there was kind of go like, okay, it's a head, but it's a spider, right? And then like the chest kind of comes open and everything. It's all things you know, but remixed, you know?
It's like mess me up on dogs for life.
Dude, I mean, the Fly messed me up on donuts for like quite a few years.
It's like they don't understand the power they have.
Changing your whole diet. Yeah, changing your whole diet. It's insane.
Okay,
do you remember like when like you know you remember when the movie Babe, like bacon sales cratered for like 3 months?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then everyone was like, "No, it's too good. Sorry."
We went back somehow, and now everything is covered in bacon. Okay, for All Against All, is the storyline more about following how the human is going to make it through this weirdness, or is it truly about the aliens figuring out the aliens?
I'd say it's like a two-hander, really. I mean, in the sense that for the first half, like up to kind of like, I would say up to the end of issue 3, you're very much like with the aliens. Mm-hmm. And you're viewing this thing very much as this sort of ambush predator that just kind of comes out of the darkness and like tears your head off. But then without giving too much away, as we head into kind of the back half, like inevitably, I want to kind of do a bit of backfilling, and I'm spending a little bit more time with the human is called Helpless, and that's not ironic. Like they've called him, they name all the creatures in the habitat, but they've called him Helpless because, as you know, when they first see like a human baby, they're like, this thing cannot possibly survive. Like it can't even lift its own head, right? It's completely helpless, so they call him Helpless. And then in the back half, you start to get more of an understanding of why he is like as angry as he is, and you know, of course, you know, that doesn't kind of diminish the savagery of like anything he's done, but you know, hopefully, like all sort of good character pieces, at the very least, you don't have an excuse, but you have an explanation, you know.
Yeah, and again, you're writing amazing things. You and Cass
thanks.
Are like gonna make us like look at ourselves again as a human race and say, what are we doing?
Isn't that what sci-fi is all about, right?
Yep.
Like ultimately, it's always about now. It's always about your backyard. I remember some years ago, like just reading like Alan Moore's essay on comic writing, which I think Avatar have just republished. Actually, you might even have some in stock. But his essay on comic writing, and he says, you know, genre is basically a series of dials, and I just thought that blew my mind, right? That like all you're really doing with genre is kind of taking certain intensities, certain human behaviors, and just going like, what if this part of humanity was like dialed up to 12 instead of 2? That, you know, that's all sci-fi ever really does.
So perfect. All right, we're down to 1 minute. Dadgummit, we always run out of time. Good thing I can just have you back and we can talk about Red Goblin next time. Where's the right place for all of our wonderful viewers to follow you about all the things you're making?
Oh, yeah. I'm on Twitter until Twitter explodes. I'm on Facebook, and hopefully I'm on here if you'll have me.
As many times as you want to come and hang and talk about.
I appreciate you, friend. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. Thank you for being here for Talking Shop. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and like and share everywhere you are. Stay tuned because there's an awesome show coming up next for Comics and Collectibles. You know they have a lot of fun. Don't miss it. See y'all. Thanks, y'all.
Join the